Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Seb Cox, a film director from the southeast of the UK, and today I'm going to be looking into how I can start 3D printing. It's something that I've wanted to try for ages, and now they are finally at a price that is affordable. So we're going to look at a few of the printers that are out there, see what kind of prices there are, what's going to be best for my needs, something that's going to be easy enough for me to just pick up and go. I'm busy making so much stuff that I don't want to spend too much time tinkering a machine. I need something that can just go. I've always been a big fan of animation and anime and things like, I've been loving Naruto, always have. I grew up with it and I love it. And I've been really appreciating all the kind of like little mini figures. You can see I've got a few over there, and I've got a few more down there. But yeah, all the little figurines are really cool. However, they have never made my favourite character in my favourite episode. They haven't made a figurine of this character in that moment, and I was like, well, I want one. Let's look at some printers and see what's actually on the market. I have taken a look around and sort of seen what's on the market. There are a few different ones that I've seen, because there's basically two ways that you can go about 3D printing on the cheap. You can either do a vinyl-esque 3D printer, which uses like a pool of liquid. Like, the detail you get in it is fantastic. However, it's a big hassle and there's a lot to look after and maintain, and for me, who's always sort of jumping between lots of different projects, I need something which is just super minimal. Like, I don't want something that requires a lot of time to maintain. But I find that this was probably going to be too much for me to manage everything. There is this one here which I have been looking at, and I think it's a good option for those of you who want to get started, especially if you are printing things that are small. However, this printer here is probably the one that I'm going to go with. It's the FlashForge Finder. It's basically their entry-level 3D printer. Essentially, it is for education. A lot of it isn't as high quality as these more expensive printers, but for me, something which is just simple enough, it's not bad at printing detail, this is a good option. It doesn't need a lot of maintenance because it's just PLA, and it's cheap. So I'm very happy with this, and we'll go ahead and order this, and I'll take some photos when it arrives. Gotta take it out the box, take it out the bag, take a few zip ties off of it, take a bit of tape off, remove the rest of the stuff, lift the plate, and remove the last little thing. Congratulations, you've unpacked your printer. Please keep the kit and packaging for future use. Alright, sure thing. There it is. I'll be honest, the setup is super easy. It's so easy. Yeah, just you just got to take off a few pieces of tape from like the top, take off a few pieces of plastic, and you are good to go. There's our first model. I'm trying a benchy, which is like the standard way of testing your 3D printer. It has depth. Woo! Damn, 1 hour in and the print failed. It slipped off the plate. This time I'm trying it again, this time with the provided glue stick on the surface of the plate. And I've added a raft. It's done! Ta-da! And I've got my own little custom setup to get any kind of spool in there. So it's been really easy. Even like loading the filament, the instructions on this are very, very straightforward. All you've got to do is just make sure that you keep pushing your filament in with that pressed down until it starts to come out of there. And then once it does start to come out of there, you're all done. You just click OK, and it's all touchscreen here. Very, very easy. Top tip for anyone who's loading new filament, just use some scissors just to sort of snip the end of your filament just so it's nice and straight. I've been really, really impressed with this thing. The only difficulties I've had is trying to make sure that there's the right stick and the right amount of ability to take my designs off of the 3D plate. But I think we got there now. So here is an example of one of the prints that I did. So this is a benchy for those of you who aren't in the know. This is like a kind of like a standard way of testing and stress testing your 3D printer. Hopefully we can focus on it. 3D printer here did a fantastic job with this, in my opinion. The tricky part of this design here is the slope at the front, because it's quite of an overhang. you've got to. This is a good way to check if your 3D printer is set up correctly. If it's not, you might need to change the temperature of your filament. For this printer, the standard amount, which is 220, is actually too much. So we should be using something more along the lines of 200 degrees C, which is what I set it to, and it works great. So I'm very happy with this. The thing which I would recommend with this printer in particular is that because there isn't a heated plate, you should always print on a raft. Otherwise these will come loose mid-print and you're going to have to cancel the print midway through, and you're going to end up with a half-made design, which means you just got to start from the beginning again. We have our printer set up. Now we've got to try and work out how we can actually create our own designs and then print them, or at least get them prepared to print. First things first, we actually need to be using our software, 3D Blender. Alright, for those of you who don't know, 3D Blender is an absolutely 100% free software that is open source and amazing. I'm just going to try and run you through my process. Whenever you start a fresh Blender scene, you end up with these 3 items. We like to get rid of them all, so I press A to highlight everything and then delete to delete everything. And now we've got a fresh canvas. I'd like to make, let's say, a person, a figurine of someone. I would go Shift A and I want to add, and I want to add a curve. I want a Bezier curve. If we've got our little line here, if we press Tab to go to edit mode, we can actually position this line in different ways. So for example, let's say that I want this part to be the foot of our character here. Let's keep that flat along the ground there. And I'm going to bring this one down and have it as part of the ankle. What we're using is we're using a line to build up the structure of our character. So to extrude this point, I'm going to press E, bring this up, make a knee, just rotate it around a little bit. Okay, and if I press E again, we're now going to go up to sort of where the hip would be. I'm going to press E to extrude again, go across, R to rotate that over the top, so it's the other side of the hip. E, bring that down to the knee again, and now this time I'm going to actually bring it forwards in space as well. So I'm pressing G to move there, E to make a new one, bring that right down. Again, set Z to 0, and I might have the ankle of this foot a little bit higher and have their toes touching the ground. So E, bring that over, R to rotate that. I'm going to add a little bit of a curve on that, just to increase the scale of it, so we get a larger sort of softened bit, and I'm going to set the Z position to 0. So here is a set of legs, just using a line to represent that. And if we press Tab, we can see them in their object mode. So there's a set of legs, obviously not perfect, but it just gives you the idea. Now if we go down to this icon here with the legs selected, we can go down to geometry and we can add a depth. There we go. So we can add a thickness to that object. Let's say as well that we had a torso, so I'm going to show you how to add 2 of these elements together. So I'm going to go Shift A, I'm going to again add another Bezier tab, so we can go into edit mode. I'm going to move this up. I'm going to bring this one up, G to move it, R to rotate it. Now like we did before, we're going to click on that green icon down there, give it some depth. I'm going to give it a bit more because it's for our torso, just like that. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we're going to bring these 2 objects together, ready to print. We are not working with a mesh here, we're working with a curve, so we can still edit it like we would a curve, but we don't want that anymore. We've got it in the shape that we want it, so I'm going to go right click, convert to mesh, click on this one, right click, convert to mesh. So now when I press Tab, we can see that it's made of these vertices rather than being formed from a line. We need to close up these ends. So you can see here they're like open ends at the feet, so these are like open. So if we click on this object, press Tab to go to edit mode, we're going to zoom in here, make sure we've got our edge mode on, and double click on this edge. I'm going to press M, and I want to say M to merge, and I want to say at center. So we're going to merge them all and we're going to close that off, and we're going to do the same over here. So double click M at center, and I mean to do the same with the torso. So click on the torso, press Tab, zoom in there, double click M at center. I mean to do the same at the top. Double click M at center. Okay. We've got this weird kind of shape here at the moment. Now, before we go much further, I'm just going to get these into a bit more of a closer version of the rough shape that we want. So I'm just going to double click there, So we can highlight this. I'm going to add a little bit of a soft select and go to our scale item, and I'm just going to drag this in to sort of pinch the hips there. I'm going to hit page up to increase the graduation of that, and then I'm going to move it back a little bit just so it lines up with those hips a little more with soft select still going. What we're going to do next is we're going to actually go into our sculpt modes. This is where we can add a few more details, and this is the process I like to do to really bring out the characters that I want. I'm going to go to sculpting, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through here and I'm going to just get the shape roughly right. The first thing I want to do is I want to do some dynamic topography. Adds more vertices when it needs to. I like to go to constant detail, and I like to find out what the detail currently is on this object. So it's currently about 10, and you know what, I'll probably boost it up to about 15. Let's try 15 for now. This icon here, and I like to scale, a ton of mirroring, scale this up using the square brackets, and I like to just run this all over the model just to make sure that we've got all those vertices ready to go. And this only works if you've already got dynamic topology enabled. So you can see here as we're just adding a few vertices to this mesh. That gives us plenty to work with here. Now I'm going to get my super smoother, so it's just the one above, and I'm just going to apply that, and you can see how it's just sort of smoothing down those harsh edges there, and I just like to give everything a little run through with this first, so that it's ready to sculpt in a little more detail. Alright, so not looking very leggy, but we are getting there. So if we go to this tool, we can actually just increase the thickness of things, which is pretty quick and easy. Once we've done the legs, these aren't great, but it gives you the idea. We can go back to our layout mode, and let's say that we've done the same for the torso, so let's just quickly add some vertices on that. So we have done the torso supposedly, and we've also done the legs supposedly, which aren't, but let's say we have. And first thing we've got to do is we've got to go to our preferences, so edit preferences. Now we're going to add some add-ons, which essentially they're just parts of the software that come with it. It's just you've got to choose whether you want to enable them or not. But there's something called the bool tool, which is essentially a quick way of doing booleans. Highly recommend it. But yeah, just tick on that box, type in bool, B-O-O-L, and then tick on bool tool. So you might have loads of different pieces. So you might have done a piece for the arms, for the heads, to the hands, you know, whatever else. You might have had loads of different elements, but to 3D print something, we need them all to be one combined mesh if you want them to print together. So we're going to do something called a boolean that brings them all together. We're going to click on one, hold shift, click on the other. Now because we've got that boolean add-on enabled, we can just press Control Shift B, and this here is our bool tool, and it just gives us some options. So we've either got difference, union, intersect, or slice. We just want to do union, and it's going to link those two objects into a single object. What I like to do here is I like to actually go back to the sculpting mode and just smooth out those edges. Just go to my super smoother there, and you can see how you can see how they are actually joined as a mesh there. Once you have that, I suppose the last thing to do is to make sure that this object can stand. I'm not sure if this one will stand. We made sure that the feet went a little bit below this sort of bottom line here, and that's so that we could make the bottom of them flat. So I'm going to do Shift A, I'm going to make a cube, and I'm going to set its position to -1, bring it right down there. So all I'm trying to do here is just cut a flat part on the feet. The cube, then our model, Control Shift B, click difference, and now that cube is going to cut a flat base to those feet there. This model probably won't stand, but it'll just take some trial and error to get that right. So now how do we get that from the software to our 3D printer? Just go to File, Export, STL, and we're going to click selection only, because I only want the object that I've selected to be exported. Export STL. 3D printers tend to come with their own software. Some people use something called CUDA to do their file manufacturing ready for the 3D printer. The FlashForge actually comes with its own software, which you can just get on their website, and I highly recommend doing that if you are using theirs. It will automatically put in all the details it needs for your specific printer. We are going to be using the flash print software that you can get online, and if we click load, we can then load up our STL. It comes out very small from Blender. You can still set the scale here. So for example, if we want to set this to be 5 centimeters tall, on the Z axis we can highlight that and press 50, and then bam, we are now 5 centimeters tall. Click back to view, and we can navigate our our image here, our 3D model. I definitely recommend doing supports for something like this. Now, because it's quite a small design, we can probably get away with tree-like structures. I did make these smaller for my very small prints, but I did defaults recently, and they seem to work pretty well. So click auto for auto support, and you can see it's just put one one very intimate support there to support the middle part of the legs, and they do tend to do a good job. Next thing we do is click print. If you are using the Flash Forge Finder, the raft is definitely essential. High quality is fantastic. For print options, just something to bear in mind is that PLA on this printer tends to work best at 200 degrees and not the initial 220 that's already in this software. Then when we're ready to go, we just click OK. It will process it and slice it into the path that the printer is going to do. What's nice about this is it actually gives us a rough time on how long it is going to take, the length of materials, and if you click weight estimate and then you go to the PLA that you're using, we can see it's only going to use 3.3 grams. Now all you got to do is put that file on a USB stick, plug it into your printer, select the file you want to print and click print. Done! Here's the model that I made for my favourite character in Naruto, from my favourite scene, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because my girlfriend is just getting into Naruto and I'm not going to say who this is. She's probably going to watch this video because it's spoilers. Those of you who know the series, you will know this scene, and you'll also probably know that there isn't any 3D models of this moment out there. At least I haven't seen any, so I have made my own, and this is the model that I made. What we're looking at right here is an incredibly ambitious model. This is not 3D printer friendly in the slightest. Okay, we've got a massive overhang. All right, we've got all these horizontal parts here. We've got a very thin cloak, which is very difficult to print. At the back here, we've got these very thin horizontal pieces that are then coming off this way after being very high up off the print plate. This is a nightmare to a 3D printer. This is a real stress test of what a 3D printer is capable of right here. If a 3D printer can print this, that's incredible. Basically, that is like, I am happy with that printer. If it can print this successfully, I am happy. And the other thing to bear in mind as well is because we've got such a thick base, what tends to happen is if you've got a very thick base and it starts to cool whilst it's printing, which it naturally does, it wants to shrink, it actually pulls itself off the plate. So everything about this is difficult for a 3D printer to print. So we'll see how it comes out and we will take a look and I will come back and show you. But that's the 3D print that I've wanted to do, and I've made it and I'm very proud of it. But yeah, lots of details in there, and it's incredible that this was all done on a completely free software with just like a couple of reference images, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Ta-da! Now to take him out and see how well it's printed. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the moment of truth. We're going to take a look at the unveiling of my 3D model. Let's take a look, shall we? I am one very proud boy, modelled all by myself with reference to the original animation, and it's come out looking great. Look at that! Look at it! So good. Oh, I am so impressed with this. Look at how well this has come out. Now it is a little bit fragile because we're working with all these thin pieces here. Like we've got these very thin cloak pieces, we've got these very thin pieces on the back, and you can see how they didn't come out perfectly. However, they did come out very, very well. And I am seriously impressed with this thing. You can see how it's managed to print the base. It didn't warp or peel very much. It's managing to hold all of its weight on this point here. But yeah, oh wow, I am so impressed with this, and there's so much Like, not only am I impressed with like the print, but this is my my first proper go at modeling something in a 3D software as well. So I am super impressed with the pose, the posture, the amount that it looks like the character from the show, and it's so doable for anyone. And the fact that the 3D printer was, basically plug in and play, and it comes out with this. Wow. I seriously can't express how blown away I am with the print quality of that 3D printer. It's insane. Like, it's insane. And I hope you enjoyed this kind of journey of the process and found it useful or interesting. I'll pop this back very gently because it is quite fragile. That is it. That is the journey of my wanting to buy and get into 3D printing through the want to afford Naruto figurines. I made my own. I printed my own. It came out looking great, and I am super impressed with my ability to print and this 3D printer. Thank you very much for tuning in. Be sure to follow or subscribe if you want to follow more of these creative journeys, and if you have a chance, if you want to see more of my work, you can go to sebcox.com, or you can check out my latest feature that's coming out at arewemonsters.com. Lots of cool stuff going on over there, or you can follow me on all my socials at sebcoxfilms on wherever. Thanks for now, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!